Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She comes with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. Hello, everybody. How you doing tonight, huh? Welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. It is Friday, ladies and gentlemen. You made it to another fun-filled, fun weekend. I don't know. It's a weekend. It's been a long week. Lots of things going on. Lots of craziness going on. My God, what the hell's going on in this world? But it's almost like the paranormal is more normal than the rest of the world. I don't know what the hell's going on out there. It's nuts. And some horrible stuff going on, and I guess it just seems to me you just don't know. Every day you just don't know what the hell's going to be next. It's like this is really a funky year. I was just really convinced, man, this 2020 is going to be the one year. I was saying that since 2017, 2018, 2019, and now 2020, and I'm still saying it. I can't help but be optimistic because I think we are breaking through. A lot of things are changing, but my God, change can be a brutal act apparently, because whatever's going on in the world, man, people are freaking wound up. Now I know what's going on in like Minnesota. Obviously that police officer was way wrong, way horribly, terribly, painfully, morally, ethically, humanely wrong. This person couldn't have done anything more wrong than what had happened, and it's a crime. I couldn't even watch the video. I didn't want to watch someone die. I couldn't do it. And every time I've seen these videos like this, they fill me with such rage. They do, and it's primal. It's a primal kind of rage that we're feeling and dealing with, and it's horrible. I it's hard too, because people want to be angry right now. They want to be angry, and that's, I guess that's justified. I wouldn't take that away from them. It's like, who am I to say, no, you guys just, go settle down. Yeah, what happened was just a crime against all that is good. And, I know the person wasn't, I mean, he had his own issues, but that wasn't appropriate nor proper or even decent. It was just so contrary to good what happened to him. And of course people are upset, and I guess that stands to reason. I'm not making any excuses for any of that. The things that do bother me, and this isn't really what the show is about, but it is something that is on my mind because it directly affects me in many ways. I have family members that are in law enforcement, and the unbridled hatred that people are seeing right now towards towards law enforcement is absolutely terrifying. And I don't know. I want my family members to be safe. I want them to be okay. And things like this are literally terrifying. And I even saw somebody today online talking about there are no good cops out there. There's none. People keep saying there's good cops out there, but if they're so good, why aren't they saying something? Well, they are. They are saying something. They just don't have a national voice. There's a lot of people saying something about what happened and how horrible it was. But if you didn't hear about it, that doesn't mean it's not being said, and it's very concerning. So I hope people find, I hope people find compassion in their hearts again, and try to keep these kind of actions relegated to individuals. It's not as easy to say, well, this guy was this and he did this, so all of those guys like that are the same. That's never okay, and it's never going to be okay. And no matter what, I mean, good, bad, or otherwise, no matter what, not all ministers are good. Not all, not all people in prison are horrible. It's just there's no luxury that we have to just lump all people into a group. And it's not right for any group to be just categorized and labeled. We are individual. We are, unique. And I think the minute we lose sight of that and we start creating classifications and putting people into those classifications based upon some, identifier, then that's horrible. And it's just a whole new kind of sickness in this world. So one sickness doesn't override another. And I think that that's really, for me and in my thinking, that's important. This is a paranormal show, but I feel like I have a limited voice, and I have to use it as much as I can to try to say something that might matter to somebody listening. If things are horrible, I understand, and I understand being outraged. I'm outraged. I'm mortified. I'm petrified by what has happened. But again, I think you've got to remember that, as all people are individual, and no one person gets to create a classification for an entire group of people. Whether it's a racial color, whether or designation, or if it's a religious designation, or if it's a professional designation, no one person gets to create an identifier for all of those people that may share some of those features and classifications. So I just hope people remember to find their hearts in this. Of course, mourn. Of course, be angry, and of course, encourage change, but not at the expense of innocence, not at the expense of people that are struggling to make a living. I mean, businesses are burning, for God's sakes. People's livelihoods, they were already shut down for such a long period of time, and it took everything they had to keep that going. And then to have, mobs of people coming around who are angry and deciding to make the world burn. And that's just not okay. That's my 2 cents on that, but just remember your hearts. Remember your compassion. Remember that this world is not the measure of us. It's not our final destination, in my opinion. This is just a step on the path. And learn from it what you can, change from it what you're able to, and then grow. So just my 2 cents right off the beginning. It's just, I feel like, again, I know I'm not a huge national audience. I'm not a huge global audience. I don't have those kind of luxuries, but I do have an audience, and I do have a microphone, and I feel compelled to try to put some reason into it, and to remind people as much as I can with the little voice that I have, that we're better than this. We really are. And yeah, horrible things are happening and horrible things have happened. But horrible things have always happened. This is not a new development in the history of our civilizations. It's horrible. It's as horrible and today as it was, 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago. It's horrible. Oppression is horrible. But we have always have a potential to change these things and make them better. Because it's really not about us. It's about the future. It's about what we can build in the face of those tragedies that make these moments so powerful. Being angry and running around, creating terror and destruction, history will remember it, but not in a good way. But if those things are used as catalysts and motivations and determinations are forged from this, and we create a better world, then that's exactly what it's for. And that's what these things can teach us. And it's incumbent upon us all to push for those changes so that this doesn't happen again. Never. Unfortunately, it will, but maybe one of these days we can actually change it so it doesn't again. And maybe that's our future. Maybe that's our metamorphosis in this if we choose to make it that way. But the future's ours to mold. So that's just my 2 cents, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just gotta say what I can say. And if it matters, then great. If it doesn't matter, then I tried. So, all right. Tonight is a 2-hour show, ladies and gentlemen. 2 full hours of the Paranormal Portal. Well, an hour and 45 minutes now. I took up 15 minutes of it with that. But, I hope you guys don't mind. I hope you can indulge me that. I have no idea what that was. That was weird. I don't know what that sound was. That was really bizarre. Did you guys hear that? Did you guys hear a whoop sound? Like a freaking police siren. Like, when they're right behind you, like, whoop, whoop. That's what it was like, except one of them. I don't know if you guys heard that or not, but that was really weird. Oh, my God. All right. So, well, thank you. I appreciate that, Chris. Thank you very much. And to those of you in the chat, I appreciate it on TFR and on YouTube. Again, I'm sorry for the taking the soapbox right off the bat, but I think we all have to raise our voices as much as we can. So again, it's not what the show is about, but it's my show, so you get to deal with it. So anyway, but yeah, that whoop was weird. I never heard that before, ladies and gentlemen. That's a Paranormal Portal first, but that doesn't surprise me too much. Lots of strangeness always happens on the show. So you did hear that. Thank you, Nessie. I appreciate that. It sounded like a scratch on a record. Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah, Gemini, you're right. That was weird. I don't know. That's a new one to me. I've heard a lot of weird things doing this show, and I know electronics are glitchy. I'm not trying to imply it was supernatural, but it is weird, and it was really an odd time for that sound to happen. But anyway, it's good to get it out of the way first. Thanks, Bam. I appreciate that. Yeah. Dawn says, we adore you and your whoop sound. I don't know what the whoop sound was. Honest to God, I have no idea where that could have come from. That is completely new. I don't have any other live mics around or anything. It's just this one and my headphones are the only live audio going on right now. So that was a new one, but I am connected to Skype, and Skype can be really flaky, especially, any of us hosts. We've experienced all kinds of weirdness on Skype. But anyway. All right, so let's get underway. I got a bunch of weirdness to talk to you guys about. It's going to be kind of a grab bag kind of a night, but if you want to call in and be a part of the show, I love hearing from you guys. It's always wonderful to have your involvement and your participation on the portal. So if you have something you'd like to share, paranormal, please do. Call in 720-923-0945. 0500. Again, 720-923-0500. I'd be happy to talk to you if you call in. Oh, thank you, Lucky. I just saw your remark. I don't know. We all got to do what we can do, right? So I hope you guys had a good day, whatever your day implied, whatever your day consisted of. Implied. I don't know where the hell that came from. But whatever your day consisted of, I hope it was a good day. It was really hot here, which is really nice. But the weird part is not that you're tuning in for my weather either, but it's been a weird spring. It's been like, it would be like 50 degrees, and then it'll be like 75 degrees. And it's like these big just jumps, sudden jumps. It's hard for the body to get acclimated for it. Generally springs around here are pretty gentle and, rainy, but they'll be like 50, then 55, then 60, and then 65, and it'll be pretty consistent. But this year's been just this weird roller coaster. At least that's my experience. I might be, it might be absolutely normal for up here. I'm not a longtime resident of the north of Idaho, but it's been a weird one. But it was a beautiful day today, so got out and I noticed the mosquitoes are coming. So I got one of those electric rackets. I was talking about it a little bit last night, but man, I was on the offensive. I go and hit the bushes and I'm looking for the damn things. I just think it's fair game. Since they attack me regularly, it's fair. It's turnabout's fair play. They say all's fair in love and war. You know the deals. So now I'm starting to sound like Joe Biden. You know the thing. So I want to open up with some weird stories. Just some grab bag again of different strange things, and this one's coming from the Occult Museum, and is the website theoccultmuseum.com, and this story is very short little stories in this article, and we've read from it before, but I'm going to continue our journey on it tonight. And this quick little clip story is called The Night Visitor, and it says, okay, this is my go-to scary story that happened to me. When I was about 10 or 11 years old, I stayed up sort of late. When I got to bed, I was still feeling restless, and I pulled all of my blankets around me and tucked myself against the wall. My twin bed was just flush with the wall, so I was in my bed, awake for probably an hour, when I started hearing a rather unsettling noise. Muffled crying. Well, I focused on it, hoping it was just my imagination, or maybe I was already asleep. After a few minutes, I just needed to see what it was. I turned around the bed to see a woman in a dress standing at the far side of my room, crying into her hands, and her hair was matted and her clothes were tattered. And she was about 7 or 8 feet tall, crammed under the ceiling, and after a few seconds, she looks up at me and screams. But it's... Oh my God. That made me jump. What the hell? And she screams and it goes, whoop. Well played. Wow. So she screams. That actually gave me a jump. I was like, everything just puckered all of a sudden. But it sounded like it was coming from far away. And she made eye contact with me, turned around, and walked through the wall. Oh, man. Hold on. Yeah, that's creepy. I don't know. The weird one-off apparitions like that are strange. What do you do with those? I mean, it's not... I don't know. This is a little blurb of a story, but it doesn't seem to have a context. So all I can assume is this is just something that happened. And I don't understand it at all. But, yeah, I heard it too, Nessie. Yeah, it's to look up and to see that. And you got to wonder what torments these souls like this, and why the hell was it so big? 7 or 8 feet tall for an apparition is absolutely enormous. And most ceilings from floor to ceiling are 8 feet tall in houses in the United States. I can't speak for all around the world, but 8 feet is quite a spread. And what would it be like to look and see this woman standing there that's so abnormally large, crying into her hands, and obviously had been through a hell of a time. I don't know. That's really creepy. I don't like that at all. Sorry, I gotta wipe my eyes. Yeah, that's really freaky. Freaky stuff. But again, it sounds like a one-off thing, and those are hard to make sense of. What is it? Who knows? What was she there for? Who knows? But we don't even know if that was just one or if it was just a one-off. If that was one of many or just a one-time event. Jeez. The next one is kind of an interesting one. I did pre-read this one before the show, and I got to admit, this one sounds really creepy. And it's called The Talking Portrait. It says, when I was maybe 6 or 7 years old, I was staying the night at my grandparents' house, and I was on the couch trying to sleep when I heard whispering. They had a painting of my aunt hanging on the wall in the living room, and it was talking to me. Nothing creepy, though. It was talking the way my aunt would talk to me, asking me if I was behaving in typical aunt talk. She tells me to go wake up my grandfather because she needs to talk to him. Well, I did, and when he realized she wasn't there, he began scolding me. In between threats and insults, he noticed someone moving outside the window. He grabbed his pistol and told me to stay in the room with my grandmother. A minute or two later, we hear a gunshot. Turns out there's a prison for young adults about 20 miles away from where they live, and 3 of them killed a guard and escaped. They were sizing the house up to take his truck and whatever they could when he saw them first. Ended up shooting one of them in the shoulder, and I have no idea why that picture was talking to me. They've never experienced ghosts before or since. So that's another one off, but that one's kind of easy to figure out, right? They were in dire straits. That's all kinds of horrible to think what could have happened in that situation. But I don't know. I assume they caught the guys or whatever, but yeah, that's freaky. Very freaky. All right, the next one is called The Bunker. It says, this one's a little bit longer, but it says, I live in the north of Switzerland, and we have a lot of old military bunkers from the Second World War. When I was 7 or 8 years old, 3 of my friends and I went to explore one of these bunkers who was built on a hill inside a small forest. The main door was jammed, so we had to break it up, and we found a big log nearby and used it as a battering ram. After many tries, the door just would not budge. But there was a peephole, and it was about 10 centimeters or 4 inches in diameter, and we opened it and illuminated the dark inside, and there was a long, ruined, and dark hallway with rooms on the left and right side, and we couldn't see the end of the hallway. It was just too long. Well, every one of us wanted to catch a glimpse of the inside, and when one of my friends says, "Hey, there's a small light at the end of the hallway." This light was not there when I watched through the peephole, so I pushed him away and took a second look. What I saw gave me a shiver. There was not a small light. It looked more like a flashlight pointed directly towards me, and behind it was a silhouette of a person. I walked a few steps back and said, "There's someone in there." And at that moment, someone or something knocked on the door from the inside of the bunker. This was the moment we got into a panic, started screaming, and ran away. I was so scared, I ran straight home and locked the door. On the next day in school, my friends and I talked about the event, and we came to the explanation that probably some older kids had played a prank on us. And 1 week later, we went to the same bunker once again. But as we saw, the welded connection that should keep the door locked were rusty and not broken, and just left without saying a word to each other. It was impossible someone opened this door before us, and this was the only entrance. I still live in that same region, and standing in front of this door again was not very comfortable. The story happened 20 years ago, but it still looks the same. Yeah, they built them to last. They built them to last, that's for sure. That's really weird. Let me take a look at the time to see how we're doing here. We got a couple minutes. Just want to remind everybody, of course, that, Friday nights are an epic night here on TFR. TFRlive.com, of course, has Freaky Friday before me. And then there's the Paranormal Portal. And then after the Paranormal Portal, of course, becomes Paisley Wild and her show, The Spaces Between. And then if you stick around a little bit longer and go to tfrlive.com/chat, you can chat with the Duke himself as his show. World Bigfoot Radio will be playing on there, and he's doing part 3 of the Kevin Lang stories. And that should be really incredible. Great experience. Of course, if you're not familiar with who Kevin Lang is and was, he passed away just recently. But he's was an incredible guy. And he'd been on the show, The Paranormal Portal, a few times. We had a really nice discussions with him every time. Just a great guy. Came across as one of the most sincere and incredible guys that I've ever met. I met him in person as well. But he befriended a young Bigfoot that was apparently orphaned in the wilderness near his home when he was a teenager, and they just had this incredible, unlikely friendship. And it seems like they probably saved each other in a lot of ways, because Kevin's life was pretty tough, and this was his salvation in a lot of ways, and he was the salvation as well in a lot of ways. Just a really incredible story. So if you haven't heard it, I would recommend checking it out. You can check out parts 1 and 2 on World Bigfoot's radio archives on TFR, especially if you're a member. You can go and download commercial-free MP3s of the episodes if you're a member. So you go to tfrlive.com and become a member. Go to tfrlive.com/World Bigfoot Radio, and on his page there, you will see a way to become a member, and it's a really inexpensive thing, and it goes a long way to support the network and all of us hosts, and keep it going. I know there's a lot of work going on with the TFR, so it doesn't come cheap. Everything takes resources. So any way any of you guys can help will be wonderful. But we're going to go to our first break of the night, ladies and gentlemen. So don't go away, and we'll be right back for more of our show here tonight on the Paranormal Portal. So I'll be here waiting for you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and half hour number 2 is underway here on the Paranormal Portal, and I hope you're enjoying the ride so far. I was just talking to the chat room about on YouTube about how weird that siren was. That siren noise, like the whoop, it's just so creepy. And the first time was just odd, but the second time, when I was reading that story and just hit the line, and then she screamed, and all of a sudden in my ears, like, and I was like, that was funny. Wow. Creepy stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Creepy stuff. But that's what happens on the portal. Sometimes this weirdness happens. I don't know why. Hell, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. But we are covering a bunch of weirdness here on the Paranormal Portal. But that's what we always do. So we're going to continue our stories. We're just going through these little quick blurbs from the occultmuseum.com, and they are discussing a whole article of some strange encounters with the unknown. So I thought, God, that's a fitting start to our show. So since that's what we do here on the portal, that's awful fitting. So the next one that I'm going to cover is entitled, That's Him. And it's a quick little one. It says, I have 4 little cousins who never got to meet my grandfather. He passed away before they were born. One morning, they ran downstairs for breakfast, as they usually do. As my uncle was getting their food ready, one pointed to the fridge and said, That's him. My uncle, not thinking much of it, said, Ooh, and looked over, and they pointed at a picture of my grandfather that they never got to meet. And my cousin responded, That man comes and talks to us at night until we fall asleep sometimes. It's not really horrifying, but still eerie. See, now I think that's beautiful. I think that that's a beautiful story, because how amazing would that be? I had a grandfather that I never met either. He died prior to my birth, and I would always hear stories of him growing up about what a neat guy he was, how amazing he was, how wonderful he was. And I had the distinction of being told that I looked like him. I reminded people of him, and that was really cool, but I'd never gotten to know him. And how neat would that experience have been that he would come and have tucked me in, as a child. That would have been really cool, but I don't know. Those kind of experiences, I don't think happen enough. They should happen more. Because it's just such a testament of love, and I think that that's a beautiful thing. I mean, how awesome is that their grandfather still comes and puts them to bed? I think that's beautiful. Maybe it's just me, but, if you're going to have a haunting, that's a great one to have. Comes and tucks the kids in every night, forget about it. That's awesome. But that's just my 2 cents. So let's move on to the next one, and this one has to do with apparently time travel. I don't know. Let's see what it says. It says, my friend and I have time traveled. Or that is just the easiest explanation. We were in high school, and he was taking my bus back to my house with me, and we got home at around 2:45. I know I've read this one on the show before, but sometimes these articles appear different places, and there's not much I can do about it. But I'll continue it for those of you that haven't heard it before. But we get home at around 2:45, and my mom gets home at about 3 o'clock. Well, we decided to go hiking before my mom could say no, so we left a note on the counter and just took off. We took our usual route up the backyard hill, making sure to avoid crazy people that resided in makeshift homes up there. Climbed some trees for a while, explored a section of the car graveyard that we hadn't checked out before, and other typical teenage exploring type stuff. We took a break near the top of the mountain, and it was an unusually beautiful day. Incredibly green, and there were seriously visible light beams shining down through the canopy, like seriously beautiful stuff. So, of course, I start running around through the light and decide we should probably start getting back because my mom was probably going to be pissed if we missed dinner. On the way back, we stumbled into a pond that we had never encountered before. It was small and had a single wooden boat on it. There were also a few teepees around the pond, not old teepees. Not old teepees. They looked ratty and unusable. That sounds old. If they looked ratty and unusable. But we decided someone was probably living there and took a new path back home. And we climbed down and up an old quarry and dropped off on the main road that leads to my house. We were absolutely filthy and over a mile from my place. So we just walked the road back to my house. We arrived home before my mom, which seemed strange, so I threw out the notes so that she wouldn't even know that we were out gallivanting. She got home like 3 minutes later, wondering how we had gotten so dirty at school. She arrived home at her usual time, and we had been gone for a grand total of 13 to 15 minutes. We honestly don't even talk about that day anymore. It's just too confusing. But yeah, time travel. That's a time slip, I think. Is that is crazy. I mean, I don't know how big this hill is, but even a small hill would take quite a bit of time to do all of those things that they did. Climbing trees, going up, visiting a car graveyard, which sounds like an old junkyard kind of place or something. But, and then to walk about a mile back home, that would be a several-hour journey, and they apparently did it in 13 to 15 minutes. That's pretty incredible. Very cool. All right, this one is called The Pale White Figure. And again, these little story blurbs are coming from theoccultmuseum.com. So when I was 12, I was in bed one night with my bedroom door open. I was watching television, sitting somewhat upright with a pillow behind my head and shoulders, and the TV was in one corner of the room, and the door was in the other corner. The room was differently shaped, and basically where the door was cut off the corner of what would normally have been a perfect square floor plan. So with my bed lying between the two when I watched TV, I could see the door. I was scared of aliens, so don't judge. So I was watching TV, and out the door is completely black. Next thing you know, something catches my eye, and I look over out the door, and this is all white, human-shaped object is moving past the door from left to right, and when I stared directly at it, it turned, and it looked at me. A split second later, it passed the right threshold of the door, and I was left petrified. Shaking in my covers, nearly pooping myself, I then heard the door to the garage open and poop myself even more. I run down the stairs and am greeted by my drunk 19-year-old brother getting home. I spill out what just happened to me, and he grabs a bat, and we check every room, under the beds, in closets. Everyone was dead asleep, and we found nothing. Needless to say, I never slept with my door open again. Still to this day, 11 years later. Yeah, that'll get you shut your door. That'll do it. That's creepy. You got to wonder, what are they doing? What do they do? What does the world look like to these beings? And by beings, you don't know if this is a human entity or something else. So that's why I'm saying beings, because I don't believe all ghosts are people. I don't believe all ghosts were people. I think that there are many things that we perceive to exist spiritually, but they were never incarnate in a body. They're just a different kind of life that happens to share our plane at least somewhat. So what are they doing? What does their world look like? And what do these things see? Even the ones that were human. Do they see the house as it exists now, or do they see it maybe how it existed in their life? I don't know. Is it a time bubble? Like, are they not they're not really dead. They're just some weird dimensional portal just kind of opens, and we get these slight perceptions of them in their own time. And that could be. I think that may be at least part of some of the hauntings that go on. I think are possibly more like time-space distortions that reveal, these people at least partially to us, and maybe it reveals us partially to them. And I've talked about that on the show before. That maybe we're the ghosts to them. Maybe we're the spirits that they see creeping through their house. That's also a creepy thought. Like, we're just doing our thing and they're just doing their thing, but for some reason these weird overlaps happen, and nobody knows which is which or who is who. But it seems to me that may very well be something, at least for a portion of it. I do believe that there are hauntings. I do believe that there are people that have become deceased, that choose to linger and stay on. But the possibilities are just endless. I mean, that maybe these are just time portals, and then maybe there are hauntings, and then maybe there are non-human things, and maybe there are a thousand other things, whether it's demons or shadow people or elementals or other things like dryads, sylphs, naiads. The list goes on and on and on and on and on of things that may exist on our time-space plane, at least partially. And that's kind of wild. How do you know which is which? I don't even know, ladies and gentlemen. That's the curiosity. And if anybody tells you they do know, question that. Question it very, very sincerely. Because anybody that tells you they know exactly what's going on, I don't buy into that too much. I think there are people that have better ideas than I have. Don't get me wrong, but just again, my 2 cents. I got a lot of sense tonight, so let's go into the next one. And this one's called the Easter Bunny. The Easter Bunny. When I was younger, I used to live by the woods, and I could see a cemetery from the back porch. One Easter, I remember waking up and seeing the Easter Bunny, one of those terrifying costumes. And what really gets me is I remember smelling the wet hay. When I woke up, I didn't tell anybody, and there was an extra Easter egg in my house that my parents didn't hide. Years later, when I was in high school, I asked my parents if they ever dressed up like the Easter Bunny and came into our room, and they said they would never have gone through so much trouble. And then my younger sister, who I shared a bunk bed with when this happened, said she remembers when the Easter Bunny came into our room and made a remark about the hay smell. Well, I was terrified that we both remembered seeing a person dressed as a bunny in our room. To make it even stranger, I told the friends I sat with at lunch what happened, and one of the girls was my neighbor across the street, and she told me one Easter a long time ago, she looked out her window during the night and saw the Easter Bunny standing in her driveway. Well, I had chills. To this day, I am terrified of people in rabbit costumes. Yeah, that's weird. That's like, that kind of reminds me of like, what is that? That clown, It. That's what that kind of reminds me of, except it's an Easter Bunny this time. That'll be the next Stephen King novel, maybe, huh? Yeesh. I don't know. But it's like a supernatural thing, but it's taken this guise of something really friendly and nice. I don't know. That's creepy. I think everything is possible. I really do. I think like we often have these distinctions to what is possible and what isn't possible. And sometimes it can be almost humorous because you'll have this group of people believing beyond a shadow of a doubt. And I'm not a skeptic in any of these things, so don't get me wrong, but they'll believe it beyond a shadow of a doubt that there are these, 8, 9, 10 foot tall ape-like beings in the forests, in the forested parts of the world. There are people that believe there are dogmen, these canid giants that are running around looking like werewolves. But, one may not believe in the other, or usually I think the people that believe in dogmen are pretty on board with the whole Sasquatch thing. But then both of those may not believe in spirits, like ghosts. That's a bunch of bunk. or they don't believe in UFOs, or they believe in UFOs and Bigfoot, but not ghosts. And it's like, where do you draw that distinction? How do you form that line? It's like, well, these things are possible, but that thing isn't. It's like, I don't know. If you're willing to embrace one of them, I think you've got to have an open mind to all of it, because we're speaking about things that, at this point, are not validated by our collective consciousness, so to speak. Or I'm not going to say the sciences, because I'm not a big proponent that if science says it's real, then it's real. But I do believe that the collective consciousness is important. So it's kind of strange, but is it possible people see manifestations of things like that, of an Easter bunny? I think it is, because it gets down to faith, right? I think that we do manifest our realities, and if we manifest our realities, and if a child believes strong enough, they could maybe manifest a tulpa of some kind without knowing it. I mean, they don't know they're doing it, but they could manifest these realities, and they could manifest some magical things in this world, and it reaffirms their belief, of course, but they could very well be the source. Or maybe just by enough kids believing in it, it does have a reality of some kind. Probably not the classical version of the Easter Bunny, but maybe there is some kind of being that has become real due to this amazing faith that children have put into it for generations. I think that that's possible, very, very possible. So don't ever discard things. Don't ever discount them just because they don't fit what you may believe, because if one thing's possible, then anything is possible. That's my opinion. Oh, we got 9 minutes left. We got lots of time. All right, let's get to the next one, and this is the man by the lake. The person says, this is actually my husband's story. When he was in high school, he and some of his friends had a camp out at his friend's aunt and uncle's house in the country. They did the unusual cooking out, cooking out, putting up the tent, etc. And at some point during the night, my husband went for a short walk near a small pond on the property to take a leak. He was doing his business, and he looked up and saw a man walking around the edge of the pond towards him. He clearly saw this man, who was walking with his head down. He described him as wearing a red flannel shirt, jeans, and work boots. He thought it was really strange that this guy was out wandering around the pond in the country in the middle of the night. So he said, "Hey man, what are you doing?" Well, he didn't get an answer, and the guy kept walking past him and was now faced away when suddenly he just wasn't there anymore. My husband went and told his friends what had happened, and the boy whose relatives owned the property was shocked and immediately ran to the house and woke them up. He had my husband describe what he had seen. The boy's aunt immediately starts to cry. She had been seeing this same guy in the house, sometimes standing at the foot of the bed, and her husband didn't believe her. He had been accusing her of insanity, and apparently they were at the brink of a divorce from this issue. She was so relieved that someone had been able to validate what she had been experiencing. Yeah, that's the hard part, right? So if you see something, and again, it's not very different from these kids wanting to tell their parents, So if you're in a relationship with somebody that you love and you trust, and something horrible like this happens, you want to tell them. You need that support of that, that validation. But to have that just denied, it's like a kid being told, "No, it's your imagination. Now go back to bed." So this is an adult version of that, and all of the conflict and strife that was causing because somebody could not shift their paradigm and open up to the possibility. And it's actually kind of tragic, but I hope it worked out well after that, but who knows what damage was done in the meantime in that relationship by the husband going, "Oh, you're just crazy. You got to get you to a doctor." Oh my God. All right, this one is called Strange Voices. It says, was at a friend's house when I passed out on the couch. Woke up a little bit later and realized it was time for me to go. Got up and noticed my buddy's light on in his room, but the door was shut. Walked by the door and told him I was leaving because I had to go to work in the AM, and he said, "Yep, see ya." went to the fridge to grab my drink and walked back to his room and said, "Later, dude." He said, "Yep." Well, something didn't seem legit. It didn't sound quite like him, so I opened the door. There was no one there. No one in the house. Went outside, and his truck was gone. I freaked the hell out. I called his cell, and he had left to go to McDonald's 15 minutes earlier. I bolted outside and waited for him to get home, and he told me that the kid that used to live there years ago hung himself in the attic, and ever since he lived there, he's noticed strange things and voices. Well, this was confirmed by the neighbor and the kid's older brother. After that, just about anyone who goes over there has weird experiences, and my buddy has just dealt with it for years. But when it gets weird, he yells out, "Leave me alone." And he says the weird vibes just stop for a bit, but they always come back. Yeah, I suppose, because if a person is stuck, if they're stuck in that situation, what are they going to do? They don't have anywhere else to go. Now, I don't know why it is, but some spirits are actually literally trapped in homes. And I don't know what happens if they leave, or if there's some problem with them just going, "Screw it, I'm out of here. I'm going somewhere else." But there are some of them that don't seem to be able to do that. Now, I suspect it's probably an emotional thing. Like they're so bound to their emotions and the grief or something to an event that might have ended their life that they literally can't leave because they haven't worked through that. And perhaps if they worked through those emotions and came to some peaceful resolution to it in their own mind, then maybe they could, or maybe they could transition or whatever. But if they're not at that place, then they're kind of stuck there. And if they're stuck there, what do? Well, they're not going to go. They might respect you for a while, but again, we go back to that discussion I've had with you guys before about do these spirits go crazy if they're not acknowledged? Could they actually go insane? And maybe they could. So maybe even, it's like a little kid. Negative attention is better than no attention. So if they can't get noticed in a good way, they'll get noticed in a bad way. Just some food for thought. Just some food for thought. And I got a full buffet here, ladies and gentlemen, of thought food. I don't even know if that makes sense. God, it's already almost the hour break. What the hell's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is a time anomaly in this portal, I'm telling you. But the whoops have stopped. The whoops that were going on earlier, they've stopped. So that's cool. I don't know what the hell that was. Very weird. Very weird. Let's see if this one's a little too long to read. I'll have to get this one when we come back. But I'd just like to take a moment to say, if you haven't already, please help support us on our podcast as well. So our podcast is not just the YouTube shows, okay? We do on occasion bring the YouTube shows into MP3 format for the podcast, just because they're great episodes and we want to share them with our podcast community as well. But generally, the podcast is all new episodes, lots of interviews with people that have written in and wanted to be on the show. And if any of you out there have an experience you'd like to share and be on our podcast, please let me know. You can reach out to us at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com and just use the subject line podcast and let me know you want to be a guest. And tell me a little bit about what's going on. And I'd love to have you on the show. I'd love to interview you. To talk about what you've experienced. And we do it all on the Paranormal Portal. We do UFOs, we do ghosts, we do, demons, ghosts, anything like that, spiritual. We do the cryptids, Bigfoot, Dogman, and other, and anything in between. Psychic events, we've done pretty much everything. Weird places, and topics. So if you've got something you want to share, please let me know. Again, paranormalportalradio@gmail.com is the email to reach out. But you can find our podcasts on Pandora, Spotify, iHearts, Radio, iTunes, and now on Stitcher. We're now on Stitcher. It's official. Stitcher is live. So if you use Stitcher for your podcasts, please check us out. You can go to Stitcher.com and get the app. So iTunes is like the big podcasting platform for the Apple iPhones and stuff. But for the Android, the big application is Stitcher. So it's really exciting for us to be on Stitcher now. And if you're a Stitcher listener, and you want to check out our podcast, if you enjoy it, please leave us a good review. Since we're brand new there, we have no reviews at all on Stitcher. So, in fact, whatever platform you're checking out the show on, if you'd leave a good rating, that would really help us out because, it's like everything else. Positive interactions from listeners is like broadcasting gold to us podcasters. So, as well as YouTubers and radio hosts. So, lots of ways to participate and help us out here on the portal. And if you're not already, please like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. And if you want to help support the show, you can do that via donation at paypal.me/paranormal portal, or go to teespring.com/stores/paranormal-portal, and you can check out our gear that we have. There's going to be more coming really soon. We got some shirts in development and other items, so we're working on that as well. But there's lots of ways to help support the show. These shows are an incredible labor of love, but they're not a cheap labor of love. So anything that can be done that you're able to do, we really appreciate it. So, all right, guys, the hour break is upon us. We'll be right back in just a few minutes. Don't go away.
Play their games. Everybody loves to place their bets. They don't understand the price I paid. They don't care to comprehend. Trace their lines upon my body, dripping scars across my heart. Raging anger pours inside me as their lies keep falling apart. With my silence, I am not a stupid boy. No more breaking me with kindness, just you dance upon my joy. Leading me with empty promise, you're just another fucking mess. Taking off the slice of my sanity, just make sure that you're well fed.
This looks extraordinarily bad. think they're in a perpetual dream state, a nightmare from which they cannot wake. Caroline is not like those she's with. They're attracted to the one thing about her that is different from themselves. Her life force is very strong. It gives off its own illumination. It is a light that implies life and memory of love and home and earthly pleasures. Something they desperately desire, but can't have anymore. Right now, she's the closest thing to that.
Poltergeists are usually associated with an individual. Hauntings seem to be connected with an area. A house, usually.
Poltergeist disturbances are fairly short duration, perhaps a couple of months. Hauntings can go on for years.
Yes, they can. They can go on for years. No, wait. They can go on for years. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, hour number 2. We're into it. We are into hour number 2. Can you believe it? It's been a whiplash kind of night, but the good news is there is a phone call just waiting to be talked to. And I think that's a great way to start hour number 2. So let's start there. Area code 973, you're on the air. How you doing?
Great. I want to say I love what you do and keep up the great work. I come home about 10:30 from delivering pizza here in New Jersey, and I put you and your friend on sometimes when he's on every night. I love it. It's excellent.
Oh, thanks, brother.
And I had called you maybe last December.
Okay.
About, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, about the New Jersey Devil that was on my roof on Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah. It was small. I remember
and,
that. Right? It was small.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I had, yes. I still have video and a good picture, but it's night vision. But you could see it, move really quick in the sky. I mean, right around the camera. So I just don't know how to, I have to put it on YouTube, and then I'll let you know. But I have a quick ghost story. It's the only other paranormal thing that I can remember that happened.
Awesome.
So I was living in Lodi, New Jersey. Cool. And it was at night, and maybe 1:30 in the morning. It was late.
Okay.
And me and my ex, who I still talk to, were walking home, and I lived across the street from the cemetery. And certain times, you can actually see the phenomena. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but statues slowly moving, whether it be in a cemetery or in a museum, but I've seen it, and I've showed people, can you see what I'm seeing? And they have said yes.
Wow.
So actually, we ducked into the cemetery to have a romantic moment at like 1:30 in the morning, and I actually lived at a rooming house across the street.
Uh-huh.
And then, within 5-7 minutes, we were done, and we were walking. We got up off the grass or whatever we were doing.
Okay.
And about 6 feet away from us, a man dressed in a suit just walks right past us, oblivious to us, didn't look at us, didn't acknowledge us, like we didn't even exist to him. And he walked straight into there's a road that goes down by the cemetery that's in between my house and the cemetery. And, he just walked into it, and we looked at each other and said, what is this guy dressed in a suit, looked like he was going to church on Sunday, doing in a cemetery at 1:30 at night with nobody around, and it's like dead silence. So we looked at each other, and then we looked to see where he was going, and he was gone. Now, unless he's super Flash, like the Flash comic book character,
Sure.
there's no way. We looked both ways, both sides of the street, and he just was gone. And we only took like 3 seconds to look at each other and then look back.
Wow.
But, that's a true ghost story. And I don't know, actually, Brent, I can't say if it was a ghost, but if it was a human, he disappeared quick with a suit on and Sunday shoes.
That's amazing.
That's the paranormal story I wanted to call in and let you know. But, Brent, man, you are awesome. Keep up the great work. I love what you're doing. Have a great night.
You too, brother. Thank you so much. What was your first name again?
All right.
Santino, thank you, brother. I really appreciate the support and the love. And please, if you remember any more or you come across any other stories, I'd love to hear them, okay?
You got it, son. Have a great night. Keep up the good work.
All right. Good night, brother. Thank you.
Good night. Yep.
That is really cool. Wow. That's a great story, too. I don't know what it is about, I guess it kind of stands to reason. Our mortal remains maybe create an anchor of some sort for us. You hear lots of reports from psychics and children that see spirits. They tend to see a lot of activity in graveyards. It's kind of the old tale, the tale as old as time of the haunted graveyard, but there does seem to be truth to it. And I'm sure what Santino saw was a ghost. I mean, what the hell else is somebody in a suit going to be doing in a graveyard and then have it just disappear? People are fast and all, but that fast, I don't buy that for a minute. So I think, brother, you saw what you think you saw. Hello, Purgatory Paranormal Live. Good to see you. Thank you for stopping in. I appreciate that. Purgatory Paranormal Live. That sounds like a channel to me. Good to see you. I appreciate the support, you guys stopping in. It means a lot, definitely. But it seems to be something about our mortal remains that remains as an anchor, at least to some people. I don't know. And does cremation end that? Is that maybe one of the reasons people have chosen cremation? And in some cultures, that's just the way it's done. Does the returning the body to ash, the ashes to ashes, does that then cut that last tie to the mortal coil, so to speak? I don't know. It's hard to know. It's all speculation, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody knows this stuff, but again, these are the breadcrumbs. These are the clues that the paranormal is. So when you hear stories like this, what do you take from it? Well, for me, I hear cemetery, and then you think of, everybody talks about haunted cemeteries. And why are spirits lingering there? What is the purpose of that? Is it some echo of themselves? Is it some echo of energy that was left over that kind of has its own awareness now? And the soul has gone on, but there's still some energy left that chooses to manifest. Maybe is developing in its own right into some kind of intelligence. I don't know, but I don't discount anything, ladies and gentlemen. I tend to believe that the soul goes back to the divine. Whatever the divine means, and it could be just a place, it could be a realm of existence, it could be an energy, just an energy. It could be an intelligence. It could be whatever. I'm not trying to define that for you, but I'm using the term divine because, it's up to you to define what that means. But do our bodies also contain other energies from our life in this body? Does it leave an imprint? Does it leave an echo? Does that echo persist? Or are we tied to our bodies? Is our soul tied to our bodies? And sometimes we just go and visit our graves. I don't know. I really don't know, but I question these things all the time because I think it's incredibly important. Purgatory Paranormal Live says, I've visited many cemeteries, and I do think it's a mix. Echoes, a quiet place for them to hang out. Yeah, I think that makes sense. It really does. That's awesome. And that's great. I think so too. I think that there's just things we don't understand, and we have a lot to learn, and that's what the paranormal is. It's just this constant reminder of how dynamic and amazing our reality is. So many people think it's when things go wrong, when things go sideways, when there's hiccups in reality. But I think that's just showing us the real reality, and that our little small visions of reality get shattered when the bigger picture pops through in the form of some of these activities and more. So thank you for that call. That was really cool. I love hearing from you guys. So anytime, please call in. 720-923-0500 is the number to phone right here on the Paranormal Portal. So let's continue on the list that we were going through. And this one is coming from the occultmuseum.com. And the little segment is called Stop Now. And this one's a little longer than some of the other ones that we've been reading. So it says, many years ago, as a 14-year-old staying overnight at a friend's house with 3 other friends of similar ages. We'd all grown up together except one who was a cousin of the kid who lived there. And we'd never met him before, but his older sister was 16 at the time, and she was the babysitter while the parents were out for the evening. I think this one sounds familiar too. Again, I can't always help that we come across repeat stories, but enjoy it all the same. She decides to unearth a Ouija board from the cupboard somewhere and thinks it'd be a laugh to scare us senseless. That's not the word they use, but that's the word I'm using because I believe this should be a family show. It says, this is back in the days when you could buy Ouija boards as a board game from your local toy store. You still can. Just some chains won't carry them. I got the one on the wall over here from the hardware store. It was in their toy section, so you can still find them out there. But I couldn't believe how expensive it was. It's just like, seriously, that much? It was like nearly $20 or something like that. But it was a hardware store, so it's not like Toys R Us where you get stuff at a discount. But they're not even open anymore, are they? But anyway, so we all gather around, and it starts off with kind of a yes or no lie detector, directing questions to each of us in turn. Cue nervous giggles, but also feeling a little uneasy as we all began to feel like this was awesomely amazing, like some kind of secret that we'd been unaware of before. Well, things get really strange when the sister asks out loud that if anybody is here, please show yourself. A long pause of a few seconds, and then a framed picture falls off the wall and onto the floor. Well, naturally, we all freak out. She calms us down and insists we go back to the board because we have to help whoever knocked over the picture. Well, ashen-faced and hearts pounding, we start asking questions, and I should also add, the pointer is moving smoothly and rapidly in a completely different manner than before. Are you in the room? The pointer says yes. Are you a man? But the pointer said no. Do you need help? The pointer said no. What's your name? And the pointer spells out S-A-R-A-H. Tell us a secret, we ask. And the pointer spells out flip a coin. So we did. Someone leaves the table and gets a 10p piece. I guess this is from England, from Canada, but from out of the loose change jar in the kitchen. And this is in the days when 10p coins were big and chunky. Well, the coin goes spinning high into the air, and as we watch it coming down, it stops spinning and serenely falls edge down to land on the table. When I say land, it didn't bounce. It didn't rock. It just came down and met the table perfectly balanced on its edge, as if someone had reached out and gently placed it there. Breaking the silence, the pointer starts moving again, seemingly random letters. We soon realize their initials, including middle names. Family tradition from my friend and his sister was to have 3 middle names, something not all of us knew. Aside from the brother and the cousin, no one else would have known the older sister's full name. And we'd met the cousin for the first time that night. Somehow every person present had their initials correctly spelled out to them. Pointer pauses and then spells out 3 last words. Children, stop now. Well, it took me many weeks to be able to sleep properly, and no one told their parents. And over the years, it became our collective shared secret. Couldn't rationalize it then, and I still can't rationalize it to this day. Wow. Again, I have no idea as to the authenticity of this story, but if it's true, if what they're saying is true, that's some pretty incredibly profound events that are happening there. That's amazing. And again, most of you guys are familiar with my feeling on Ouija boards, but again, they're not a kid's toy. I'm not, again, saying that they're evil and dark and a negative thing unto themselves. It's like any other tool. It's a divination tool, and it can be used appropriately. It can be used correctly, but the problem is that the correctly isn't listed on the instructions. So when you open the box and look at the instructions, people are using it according to the instructions, but the instructions aren't complete. And so a lot of times people are just moving pointers around and just having silly evenings of, weirdness and laughter. But on the odd chance that you would find something dark, then you're kind of stuck with it, because sliding a piece of plastic over goodbye is not closing a session. That is not closing a session. There's so much more to it than that. There's so much more that needs to be done in order to close a Ouija session, or any session when you're divining, when you're contacting spirits, when you're channeling, when like mediums have specific criteria that they do to start and to finish. And a Ouija board isn't a lot different, because you're a blind channel. You don't even know what you're pulling. You're just saying, is anything there? Sorry, there's a little hiss in the background, but I have to run a fan because it's getting hot. It's getting a little steamy in the studio today. So that's the hissing noise in the background, but it sounds like a light static, but it's actually just the fan. So I hope you guys will indulge me a fan, because otherwise I'm going to be a sweaty pig sitting here bringing you shows, and that's not going to be fun for any of us, trust me. So, again, with Ouija boards, just be careful. Very, very, very careful. Learn how to appropriately, do these kind of things. And it doesn't have to be specific to a Ouija board. It's the same thing if you're paranormal investigating. You open, you get protection, you state affirmations, you state prayers. I swear to God, I heard a voice underneath it. You've got to set the theme, the scene, and you've got to make sure that, everybody in your team does the same thing. And when you're done, you've got to stop it. You've got to stop your investigation. And you don't do that by just jumping in your car and leaving. You do that maybe with a prayer, maybe with some kind of cleansing ritual, with affirmations and declarations. You are not allowed to follow me. You're not allowed to leave this place with me. You are to remain here. This is I am not your new home. You must stay. Whatever you do, but it's important to protect yourself, because some spirits are in a bad way. It's my opinion. Some spirits are in a real bad way, and they may desperately want out of their current situation in a big way, and they may desperately want to become involved in your life. And you probably are not going to desperately want that yourselves. So always be careful. That's my words of advice. Take them or leave them. But I'm putting them out there. Let me look at the time, because I can never account for how fast the time goes. All right. The next one's called the security camera. It says, I used to work at a place which required to be manned 24 hours a day. Reason being is that I handled sensitive documents and files. And if someone needed this information in the middle of the night, I'd have to go fetch it for them, or just confirm that I have it. Anyway, security is kind of tight. Bars on the windows, multiple locked doors to get where I am. They would give me work to do during the nights, but underestimated how quickly I could get it done. So Like most nights, I finished my work in like 30 or 45 minutes, pulled out my phone and just played games. And Netflix, since nobody else is in the building at night. So now it's getting to be the last third of my shift when all of a sudden I hear a door close. Well, I look to the security camera and see someone walking down the hallway towards my room. At first, I just thought it was somebody that came in ridiculously early, so I turn around and wait for them to come in, but nobody came in. And the hair started rising on my back. And now this isn't a really big building, so I figure I'll find the guy wherever he is and start checking offices and storage rooms, but I come up empty-handed. However, I do see that a fire door had been shut. I go to try and rewind the camera, but the digital recording is password protected and I don't know the password. Anyways, the whole thing freaked me out, the way the person was walking down the hallway, like a determined walk right to where I was. So I sit with my spine tingling for the last couple hours of my shift, and finally people start coming in and my replacement shows up and I tell her what I saw. And at this point, I figured I must have imagined the whole thing. And I'm told to go home, and the manager and girl who replaced me would look over the camera. After getting home, I called my manager and asked what was on the camera. So they said that the video showed the fire door closing, but then the video froze for about an hour, and the next thing it records is me reopening the door. Ooh, that's a little spooky. That's a little spooky. Oh, here's a Ouija board story. Let's get another one. It says, played with a Ouija board in college. I was not on it. When it started spelling out the F word and then the name Mary over and over. Someone on the board asked, Mary who? And the board spelled virgin. The person asked why, and this said because she watches him. The person asked who, and the piece then slid off the table towards me and landed at my feet. I had not told anyone in the room about my religious background, and I was living a life quite contrary to my upbringing. Well, I noped out of there right then and there. And when I went to get in my car, long blades of grass were lining all of my windows, wedged in between the weather stripping and glass, and I wasn't in there long enough for someone to have been that precise on all four windows. Yikes. That's weird. There's some dark things out there, ladies and gentlemen. The other part is that all these goofballs just channeled whatever that is. So that's not good either, because I think those kind of things can leave a taint. They can leave a residue. You don't ever want to be channeling anything dark. It definitely leaves a mark, I think. So this one's called Marks on My Face. I lived in some really unsettling places, and one of the events that's really stuck with me the most is probably this. I woke up one morning, and as usual, I walked to the mirror to brush my teeth and to fix the hair. Now, I'm in a relatively small place with a balcony and sink in the same room without openable windows. I looked in the mirror and I see one of my plants moving, like there's wind blowing against it. I turn around and walk over to the plant, and that is next to the door, and check if the balcony door is open or is closed, and it was. For some reason, while walking back to the mirror, my eye fell on one of the pens lying on my desk, and when I arrive at the mirror, the first thing I notice are all the pen markings on my face. My heart stops, and there's goosebumps everywhere. I cleaned up and fled the room. When I came back, the door to the balcony was open. Needless to say, I didn't enjoy being there for quite some time, for quite some while after. That's a weird way to say it. Yeah, I don't understand what happened. How did they just turn pen marks on your face without that? I don't know. That's weird. That's a weird one, ladies and gentlemen. Can't say I understand what just happened there, but that sounds plenty creepy. This one's called The Golden Light. I got about a minute left before the last break of the night already, but Said my mom had a seizure in her sleep. She was an epileptic, but got wrapped up in her blankets and suffocated herself. But paramedics were able to get her breathing again and loaded her onto an ambulance. And this was really early in the morning, like at 4:30 a.m. I was tasked with calling family to tell them my mom was in the hospital. And the first and most important phone call I had to make was to my grandmother, her mother. Before I had a chance to grab the phone and call, the phone rang. It was my grandmother calling me. This would have been around 5:30 in the morning, but around 2:30 in the morning in her time zone. She wanted to tell us that she'd seen my mom bathed in golden light and claimed they'd talked and that she was dead, but headed to a better place now. At this point, I didn't know my mom was going to die, and my father was at the hospital with her and didn't know she was going to die yet. The doctors didn't know she was brain dead yet, but somehow my grandmother knew and contacted me. That's incredibly spooky. But beautiful, I think. I mean, if someone's going to go, at least they can say goodbye, right? I don't know. There's the bell, though, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to go to our last break. We will be back in just a couple of minutes, so please don't go away. Please stick with me. I'll entertain you for the last 27 minutes, I promise. So I'll see you back here. $30 left. Well, actually, no. That's not quite true. It's less than 30 minutes left. It's 25 minutes left. Can you believe that? It's gone so quickly tonight. What the hell just happened? That's what I'd like to know. But I hope you guys have been enjoying the ride so far. And we got 30 minutes, 25 minutes left to go. I keep saying 30 because I said last half hour, but it's not a half hour, is it? It's 25 minutes. But we're going through several stories here tonight. Several of these are coming from theoccultmuseum.com, a great site with lots of good articles on it. I hope you guys check it out. There's so many wonderful sites online that deal with the paranormal, and there's some that really rise above. And I've always liked the Occult Museum as one. They just have a whole variety of different stuff to deal with on their site. And I also like the singularfortean.com, as many of you know if you've been around for the show. But now tomorrow night on the show, we've got special guests coming up, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited to do tomorrow's show. It's going to be with the Extreme Expeditions Northwest LLC crew. That's Mr. Stephen Majors, and he's going to be joined by Dr. Robert Alley, who will be joining us as well. And Dr. Robert Alley's incredible guy. I had the pleasure of meeting him when we went to the Medellin Falls Bigfoot event, the Bigfoot Town Hall in Medellin Falls. And just an incredibly interesting guy. I went and had drinks with him and dinner one night with Don and I and Bill Besson and his wife. And we had a great conversation. It was just a lot of fun, and it was a real pleasure meeting him. So this will be his first appearance on the portal, which will be great. And then one other gentleman is going to be joining us, and I got to look up the name. I've just become a little bit familiar with him, and I'm really excited about it. But his name is Will Ulmer, and he goes Will the Grassman Ulmer, and he's another Bigfoot investigator that'll be on the show tomorrow. So all three of those gentlemen will be joining Don and I on the show, and I'm really looking forward to that. That should be great fun, and it should be an amazing conversation about their most recent project they've been doing, and it's going to be exciting. So definitely tune in, and you'll hear some amazing stories, amazing experiences, and just three amazing guys. So I'm really excited to have them on the show. Again, that's tomorrow night right here on the Paranormal Portal, so I hope you'll tune in, and that's 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, right here on YouTube or on tfrlive.com, or if you're on the Truth Frequency radio channels on iHeartRadio, TuneIn, or TalkStream Live. You can listen to it just via audio if you choose. But it should be a great fun. I hope you guys will join us. So that, again, is tomorrow night. I deeply appreciate how welcoming and compassionate Brent is towards the disembodied, and those of us with bodies also. Thank you, Dawn. That's very sweet. Brent, your music from YouTube Intermission is bleeding through. Wow. I didn't know that, Lucky. I said Ducky. Lucky, I did not know that. I didn't even know that was possible. Because that's never happened before, and I've been doing the same thing for, years. So that's weird. I don't know. Maybe it's all those Skype changes, but I'll look into it. See what we can do to isolate that a little further. I just don't. I don't want to air commercials on YouTube. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're new to our YouTube show, that's actually why we take the breaks. No, I appreciate that, Lucky. Thank you so much. That's why we take the breaks, is because we are broadcasting primarily on TFRlive.com, but it's also on TuneIn, TalkStream, and iHeartRadio. And as such, every half hour there's commercial breaks on the networks. And so to keep it in sync, I created those little video segments on the breaks here on YouTube for those of you that are watching. And that's why we take them. It's not because I'm lazy. It's just because I want to keep everything in sync. So in order to not broadcast commercials onto YouTube and run into problems that way, I made those video segments. But that's why you're seeing them if you're watching on YouTube. So that's just a little bit of an explanation of what's going on. So next up, let's see what our next story here is. This one's called The Woman in the Window. And it says, my friends and I were visiting a graveyard a couple of blocks from my home on Halloween because, well, why not? I guess that's a good point. There's a building that restaurants have been going on. There's a building that restaurants have been going in and out of for years, and none seems to stay open for very long. The graveyard is basically this place's backyard. Yeah, that's probably not the best setting. On that night, for some reason, the lights were on in the building, and there was a lady in a pink dress standing in the window just staring at us. Well, there was no restaurant open in there at that time. We all just kind of booked it, and this lady followed us from window to window like she was gliding and not walking, which made us completely book it. We ran as fast as we could down the road, and there's a segment without windows for her to follow which direction exactly we went. But by the time we got to the next set of windows running full speed, she was standing there already, watching in our direction. We never made that trip again. Now, I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, but I will say that if you're looking for a spiritual event, that's probably the best time of year to look for it because there is the belief in many practices in the world that state that the veil between our world and the next world, the world of the dead, is thinnest during the solstice, the harvest moon, the Samhain or Halloween as it's observed here in America. But I've also heard from other people of other esoteric traditions that the actual thinnest time is at the Yule solstice, which I'm not sure if it is or not. I don't know. I've never heard that prior, but I have heard it now, so I will just put it out there that some people believe that December 25th is about the thinnest, or Christmas. So whatever the case is, I think we can all agree that Halloween definitely feels different. And it's more than just a temperature shift and the shortening of the days. There's just something different about that time of year. And it's really kind of extra magical to me. I really do enjoy it. I don't enjoy getting cooler because I know winter's coming, and that sucks, of course. But I do enjoy that vibe. And I don't know, maybe it's... I don't think it's dark, though. I think some people look at that as dark and spooky. And I don't feel that at all. I just feel like, I'm pretty well connected during that time. I don't know, pretty well tuned in during that time, and it feels good. So take it or leave it, but that's the belief. But if you saw this woman in the window, I think I'd be booking it too. That's a little weird. Now, I gotta say that for some reason in the paranormal events that I have experienced, and I've experienced quite a few, I haven't ever been scared. I've been startled, but I've never been scared. And I'm not challenging the universe to make me scared because I'm not saying I couldn't be scared. I'm not trying to be all brave and display a bunch of false bravado here. I don't know, for some reason it just hasn't startled me. I can't say doesn't because I'm sure there's things that could startle me. But I think that those events are not always creepy. I don't think that they're dark and twisted and weird. I think that they're just another part of our reality that we're really not understanding yet. So the next one is called Small World. It says, back in my college days, I was walking home with my sisters from a sorority meeting. We didn't live on campus, but instead we're about a 20-minute walk away. Well, it was around 2 a.m, and for the first few minutes, we were alone on the streets. There was no cars, no walkers, nobody. Eventually, someone else was seen. And this person was walking towards us. A tall, older white man using crutches and with a black dog at his side. We, of course, step aside as he walks by, letting him use the sidewalk, and we say hello, but he doesn't pay any attention to us. God, this sounds really a lot like Santino's call. As I see there's a phone call, too. I'll get to that in just a second. However, his black dog looks at us, looks scared, and quickly rejoins his master. A few blocks further, we hear the crink flop of crutches again. We're approaching a corner, and around the bend, there's the same man with the same crutches coming at us again. We step aside and say it's a small world and try to offer directions, but him and his brown dog just keep going. The dog looked at us, looked scared, and then returned to its master. Approaching home, we heard the crutches again, but can't pinpoint the location. We turn on our street and start walking down it, and about halfway down our block, the man steps out from a building, our building, and just walks by us again. Yellow dog looks at us, looks scared, and keeps walking with his master. To this day, I have no way to explain how a man on crutches caught up to us so many times and how he knew where we lived or what happened with the color of his color-changing dog. That's really twisted. I don't know. That's weird. It's kind of a Hollywood kind of story, though. I got to admit. I don't know. It could very well be real. I'm not casting any aspersions or judgments, but it does kind of read like a Twilight Zone. So, very strange. But let's get to this call and find out just what the hell's going on. All right. Caller from 845, you're on the air.
Hey, Brent, it's Carlton. How you doing?
I'm doing well, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I wanted to say something about cemeteries. You know, they seem to have come up a couple of times tonight. So I wanted to relate my experience with cemeteries.
Oh, please.
I've never had anything paranormal happen in a cemetery, and I spent a lot of time in cemeteries, and one in particular where my brother is buried, and frankly, I go there at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning. You know, I haven't been in recent years. I just kind of haven't really associated with that as much. But the time that I spent in that cemetery, it was one of the most peaceful and quiet places I ever went. And I never had any experiences that were paranormal there. And I've been to many other cemeteries hanging out with friends when I was a teenager. That was one of the places we used to go and smoke. And again, just peaceful and quiet. So, I don't know, maybe my experience is different from other people. But I thought my 2 cents in.
I've got to tell you, I've been in cemeteries many, many times, and I haven't had anything either. I've never had any weird vibes or any feelings other than what you're explaining. I always find them to be really, I don't know, serene and peaceful. Even Julia and I, Black Tree, our mod, we went out and checked one in the night out here. There's an old one near here, and it was just a nice walk around. It was looking at these grave sites. We tried for EVPs and didn't really catch anything anomalous at all. But I will say that at one point she tended to say that she felt like we were being watched. And I didn't pick that up myself, but I trust her intuition more than my own because I don't necessarily pick up on that really easy for some reason. I don't know why, but she definitely did. So I think she felt like we were being watched, and that makes sense. But yeah, we didn't have any weird occurrences that I'm aware of. And I've been in many through the years and have never seen anything anomalous or out of the ordinary. And again, it's kind of like my quest for UFOs. I looked at the sky for years looking for something because I fully believed that there was something there to see somewhere, but I just was never seeing it. And the same thing with cemeteries. I always look around looking for things that might be anomalous, but never have seen anything either. But I guess it's one of those things, just like the UFO. It took me 45 years to find one. So, maybe that's how it works.
Yeah, I have to say the same thing. I too, I believe believe that UFOs do exist. I believe people have had these crazy experiences with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I've too. I've spent a lot of time outside at night. I do a lot of my farming and gardening at night because it's cooler then.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just a night person in general, as I think you kind of know. But I've never seen a UFO. I've seen a few strange lights in the skies, but nothing that really seemed UFO-like to me.
Sure.
And I have to say, with the cemetery experience, I never went looking for something. I wasn't really looking for something. I just happened to be there,
right,
and experiencing the cemetery. But they always felt peaceful and quiet and sort of restful for me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just a weirdo.
Well, it kind of helps that the residents there are usually pretty quiet, so they're not too rowdy usually. Now it'd be interesting to go into one and around Halloween and see if that changes. Again, being the veil is supposed to be so much thinner, maybe that's when you're more likely to catch something in those places. But hard to say.
I've been in them in Halloween too.
Okay.
Several times. It's like one of the retreat places we were having egg and toilet paper and whipped cream or
Sure.
shaving cream fights. That was like the retreat spot. And again, I never had any experience. Not that only my experience matters, but it's
Sure.
just another thing to add to the database index, so to speak.
I appreciate that, man. That's cool. Yeah, if you ever do catch something, let me know. I want to know all about it.
I will definitely, and I think I'll start taking my camera when I go to visit my brother's grave and see if I can pick anything interesting up.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Now that it's on my radar, I'll have to see what I come across.
All right, brother. That sounds like a deal. Make it so.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks for the show as always, Brent.
All
Have
right,
a good
brother.
evening.
We'll talk to you soon.
Oh,
yeah.
And before I get in trouble, shout out to Nessie and Bomber.
All right. Very good. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Good day.
All right. Let's see. How are we doing for time now? I've got 9 minutes. We got plenty of time. Plenty of time, ladies and gentlemen. Plenty of time for more of this Paranormal Portal fun. All right. This one's called The Warning. It says, during college, I used to travel a lot on weekends between my hometown and my college. It's a 90-mile drive. Well, one weekend, an acquaintance of mine from high school also decided to drive home in a separate car. On Saturday night, I had a very vivid dream where this infant girl came up to me and said, "Please take care of my sister," and showed me an image of a car crash on the highway consisting of a silver Corolla, my friend's car, and a black Ford Explorer. The next morning, I immediately called her and told her about my dream and asked her if she has a sister because I've only ever met her brothers. Her response was that, well, my mom had a stillborn girl. And then I asked how old she would have been today, and she said 5. I immediately clicked that the infant from my dream was her lost sister. I talked her into driving back with me the next night and watched the news only to see an identical image to what I saw in my dream. Only this time, it was only a black Ford Explorer and not 2 cars. It still freaks me out to this day. Wow, that's really hardcore. So that's like, almost a divine intervention, And there's no saying that a spirit warning you of something couldn't be divine in origin. We always think of spirit as these nebulous beings, but I think that our loved ones can be our guardian angels too. It doesn't always have to be these huge winged creatures. Hell, I think your neighbor can be your guardian angel, or your dog, or your cat, or something. It's just an embodiment. It's not necessarily only applying to a race of beings. It's almost like a job title. It's like a plumber. Well, not only certain people can be plumbers, anybody can be a plumber. So if you fix a sink, you might be a plumber. Just saying. All right. The next one's called The Footprint. So I'd like to begin by saying that there have been many happenings in this house, but I'll share the most frightening. Backstory: the area where my house was once open prairie, and we found Native American artifacts lying around the area. When my parents divorced when I was a young teenager, My mom and I moved into this house. Now, at first it seemed absolutely great. There was plenty of space and it had a real cozy feel to it. However, as time went on, strange things began to happen. The more I noticed them, the more frequently they would become. I heard someone walking downstairs as I was brushing my teeth, and I would assume it was my mom, but whenever I'd check, nobody would be there. Footsteps began to be a really common sound in my house, especially at night, so after some time, I came to the realization that my house is haunted. Now, here's where it gets really weird. One day, my good friend and I had just gotten done from being out in the sun and decided to retreat to my mom's house. Considering she had been away on a business trip, we figured this would be awesome. My friend and I could go and drink or do whatever mischievous activities we wanted to, but we were wrong. We walked inside and headed straight for the basement where it was cooler than the rest of the house. And while walking down the stairs, I noticed that the Beatles' Yellow Submarine poster hanging at the bottom of the stairwell was tilted slightly to the left. No bother. I figured it must have just gotten bumped by me or something. I fixed it and we walked into the main room. And mind you, we had pictures and posters hanging everywhere in the basement. What my friend and I saw instantly creeped us out. All 10 to 15 pictures on the walls were each tiled slightly to the left, just as the Beatles one had been. But the weirdness of the situation didn't stop there. The storage room, essentially a dirt floor covered room that is lifted about 4 feet off the ground. A dirt floored room that is lifted about 4 feet off the ground, okay, had its door cracked open. So I walk over and I see a golden glow emanating out. And this is a pull cord light located about 10 feet from the door that is turned on. I hop up and into the storage room, crawl on my hands and knees to the light and turn it off. Hoping that all of this had a natural explanation, I call my mom up and ask her about it. She says she has no idea what I'm talking about and hasn't been in the basement for weeks before she left on her trip, so shivers shoot down my spine. I look back at the storage room, and in the dirt, there's a footprint. The most distorted and mangled footprint imaginable. I'm frozen in fear. My friend is too. Without words, we look at one another, each feeling a sickening, gut-wrenching feeling. I slammed the storage space door shut and locked it, and we bolted out of my house as fast as we could. I'll never forget how sickening and mangled that footprint looked. And thinking that I had crawled in there to turn off the light still gives me shivers to this day. Yeah, I don't know. It almost makes you think, was there some kind of malformed child? There's an old, historically, deformed babies and children were hidden. They weren't taken care of, or they were just institutionalized. There was like two options. If you didn't send your kid off to be institutionalized, you hid it. Because these deformed children, and I'm not saying deformed in a condescending or judgmental way, I'm just saying that there's differences, physical differences. But they were considered an embarrassment, and it's a horrible mark on our history as people, as as sentient beings, that we would hide those people. They would be hidden from sight, usually in attics or basements. They were left, for the most part. And people would show up and care to their basic needs and then leave them down there again. I mean, they weren't embraced. They weren't loved. They were just hidden. And that's horrible. It's just such an ugly, ugly thing. There was such social pressure, I guess, that people succumbed to, that there was some things you just didn't talk about, and those hidden children were just basically considered not to really exist. They were just some footnote in history, and could that create problems and create a haunting? For sure. These children were not really loved. They'd never really experienced love. They've been an embarrassment. They were And just think of like someone like, Stephen Hawking. If he had been alive then, he would have been rushed off and to an asylum somewhere or some hospital and left in rooms with people banging their heads on walls, and all of the bright lights that we missed out on because our ancestors weren't able to embrace those differences. And I think that's a lot to do with life, it's just learning how to embrace our differences and see past physical into, the heart and into the potential in each and every person, I don't mean to get preachy, but, things like this I think are important because it's important we learn from our histories. Otherwise, like the old saying, we're doomed to repeat them. So I think that this is probably the case for this, was that it was some malformed child or somebody that was just ignored until they eventually died and was left to wander. And what a heart-wrenching, horrible thing. But I'm glad that for the most part we're no longer that way. At least not here and in most of the countries around the world. I mean, there may still be countries that do that, but that's the show, ladies and gentlemen. That's all I got to share with you. I love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, help each other out, find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. Stick around for Paisley Wild coming up next, and then later on, The Duke with World Bigfoot Radio. Love you guys. Good night.